Greetings, you sexy bastards. Welcome back to my poorly lit room. Today, I haven't done many business vlogs this semester. I've kind of like fallen off big time. I feel like I was doing them a bunch and I was mixing in videos with them and cutting stuff and it was really cool. And now it's just like, from time to time, I sit down and do a really long chat and then throw it on the internet. So I want to get back to these, mix them up a little bit, do like more, I don't know, day in the life or something. Videos in like my labs and stuff could be cool too. I would also like to get new lighting. Let me see if this thing helps. Oh, okay. Well, now I'm just being blinded, so that's okay, I guess. But yeah, so what's going on? Well, I want to do these a little bit more often, so this is me doing it a little bit more often instead of doing like major broad strokes of what's going on, kind of a little bit more of the day-to-day. So here's a little bit of the day-to-day. Or week to week, if you will. And you will. So first thing, I read a book last week called Talking to Humans. Crank this bad boy out. It's a little dude. It's not 69 pages, actually. I don't know, 87 pages. 85. But it technically ends on page 69, so I'll take it. Anyway, actually, never mind. It technically ends on page 68. Anyway, Talking to Humans. So it's about getting... success starts with understanding your customers. So it's basically just about getting feedback from potential customers, but not even in like the after they've used your product phase, but in the before you've even developed your product phase or finished developing your product phase or started testing your product phase. It's like while you're developing your product, you talk to people who have the problem that you're trying to solve, and you see if it's actually a problem that they have. Second, if it's going to be lucrative, if they would be interested in it, what they think about it, what kind of features or functionalities they would enjoy. If it's like, I don't know, they got all kinds of questions in here that you should ask them, all kinds of approaches, different things you can do. How to ensure an effective session, how do you find your interview subjects, the magic wand question. It is the customer's job to explain their behaviors, goals, and challenges. So that was a really big thing, is like, you don't just sit there and say like, would you like this? Do you want this? But instead you ask them like, what's your biggest problem here? How much time do you waste, or how many resources do you waste, or how much money do you waste dealing with this problem? How much would you pay to have this problem solved? And you're not necessarily trying to get them to solve their problem. That's your job. You ask them for solutions that they maybe have tried, why they don't use those solutions, why they don't work, why they don't suffice. Or maybe they'll be like, oh yeah, I found this solution and it does work. And then you're like, shit, I have no product. So that's Talking to Humans. My mentor told me to read it, so I read it. And it was great. I've started doing customer interviews. I don't know if I've talked about any of this stuff. See, this is important stuff, man. Dude, everything's like, I don't know about changing right now, but the path is becoming like clearer. I was walking around my kitchen today and I was like, look, I'm gonna graduate college fall 2025, right? So I've got about another year and a half. I have 4 more semesters. And I was thinking, I'm like, all right, well, I've been working on this app for maybe 4 months now. I'm gonna get class credit for it next semester because I'm gonna do an independent study. I'm getting way faster because I'm getting way better at coding, so I can actually pump out new features and test new things at a much faster rate. I'm finally using version control, which is like absolute game changer. If you're a beginner programmer and you're not using version control, use that shit. Oh my God. And when I was a beginner programmer, I think I still am, but well, no, now I've graduated because I'm using version control. But for the past year, this whole time I've been building this damn app, I haven't been using version control, and it's just terrible. It was so stressful. Every change I made was like, oh man, and I make little zip files to like store my old versions in. Oh my God, dude. And anyway, I remember like last year, until now, like I've always heard people say like, use version control, it's so important, you gotta use it. I was always like, nah, I don't need that, I'm good, I got this, my zip files are working. Fuck that, dude, use that shit if you're a programmer. Anyway, side tangent aside, I'm getting a lot faster with programming. So I'm able to test this thing faster. I'm able to kind of like see a feature that I want to implement. I can go in, I can just crank it out. I'm starting to actually write documentation, so I know what's going on with my app, and I can look through and see like, oh, this is what this function does, that's what this function does. These are all the functions that it connects to. I'm going to set up unit tests pretty soon. So all of that should make the development process a lot faster. Anyway, I was thinking about this and I was going, okay, this is, like I've said before, this is like a product I could develop. And in these customer interviews, I've started to hone in on some features that could actually bring a lot of value to people's lives in kind of like different, I feel like I've gotten more clarity on what this could be. And essentially it's going to be, there's just a couple of features that will make it appealing to new journalers and possibly old journalers as well, or possibly will be appealing enough to get current journalers to switch their journaling method to this app. And basically the way it's going to do that is with the AI systems, it's going to start generating reflection guides. And then a lot of people seem to be really like excited about that. You go on, you have a conversation with this AI mentor, and then it creates a personalized reflection guide, and then it has the ability to set reminders to get you to take action on certain things. So all that's really good. And then I'm going to start working in a lot of just more advanced LLM processes, like the ones that I talked about in the last video on the day where I had this revelation and figured out this crazy LLM system where you have an LLM or like an observer agent who watches the conversation happen, and it like checks in every couple of chats, and it assesses, okay, where are we in this conversation? What direction should we go? Should we shift gears? Here are a bunch of processes that we can go through, and if so, it'll say, okay, we should shift over to this process. We should start discussing worry, or oh no, we should start discussing building discipline, and then it'll prompt the actual mentor AI to change the conversational direction, right? And it'll say, okay, start discussing these things, and it'll generate a new prompt. It does system prompt injections. Anyway, that's the whole thing. So very cool stuff. And so I was thinking about that. I was like, all right, so this is like a product. I mean, if I really like build this up over the next 1.5, 2 years, and I really go in on this business side of things, where I look at like, okay, how do you market an app? That's pretty much the main thing, is like, how do you market an app? How to do the business side of stuff. And what I realized is I'm making $9.50 off of every subscription, right? If I'm making $9.50 off every subscription, if I can get 100,000 users, paying users, which is like a lot, but at the same time, I don't think it's that many. Like, I think it could be realistic to get 100,000 users in 2 years, right? Pretty much exactly 2 years from now. I feel like that seems doable, but I don't know. But if I could, I would be making almost $1 million a month. So there you go. And I mean, even if I lowball that, even if I get half of that, I'll still be making well over $1 million within a year after I get that many users. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like the major financial goal right now is to get there, to build this app, make it so valuable, right? Like right now I have to do that market research. Right now I have to figure out, okay, what do people actually want, and then start to create that, and then release and test, and then get customer feedback on that first iteration. That's actually, before, it's like last summer, it was like a toy app. It was like a practice app. It was me learning how to code. Now, I guess the next step, and that's probably going to be the next 6 months, and that's probably going to be what my independent study is going to focus on, is going to be turning this app into like a prototype, a product prototype. I don't know what the hell that's called, a minimum viable product. Well, actually, I already have the minimum viable product. So it's like the step beyond that, which is like the product that you're actually showing to the world and saying like, hey, is this something that you want? And then you get feedback, and then you iterate and make it closer and closer to something that more and more people want, and then it builds from there. So I think that's kind of the direction that I'm going from here. I think I can do that while I do college. I really hope I can. It would really suck if I can't. Maybe I'll take an extra semester just to be able to maintain that balance, but we'll see. I bet I'll be able to pull it off though. I sure hope I can. But yeah, I think it's also important to realize or to remember that money ain't shit. So I don't want to get into a mindset of like, I'll be happy when I get there. I'll be happy when I get there. I don't want to spend the next like 2 years just working my ass off to be making $1 million and then, you know, get there and then be like, actually, honestly, that wouldn't be so bad. That wouldn't be bad at all. But I can certainly enjoy the process while I go through it. And I don't think that I necessarily have to like sacrifice social life for it. Yeah. Anyway, that's that. What else is going on? Read that book. I just bought a bunch of other books, like this one about marketing apps, this one about making your apps like become habits for somebody. And maybe that sounds like, you know, manipulative or like corrupt because there are like all these apps that like make these freaking addictive algorithms or whatever. But this is a journaling app. If you want any app to be a habit or to become a habit, it's a journaling app. It's almost like, hey, you know, you put all this time into making things habits. This app will just make it a habit for you, maybe, or something like that. I don't know. So a bunch of things like that. A lot of books like that. What else am I trying to do? What else is going on? Got some snowboarding in the other week. That was a good time. I feel like there were other things. Well, it's been 12 minutes. I've talked enough. I'll do another one of these soon. Dude, there's totally something I wanted to talk about other than books, money. Oh! I applied for a job. I applied for a super cool job. It's this job where basically you go in and you're fine-tuning LLMs. So they give you, and there are two jobs that they offered. One was for normal people and one was for programmers. And I applied for the programmer one because I know how to code, and that one paid a lot more. It paid like $35 an hour to $50 an hour. And basically they give you like a prompt that somebody might give the LLM or like ChatGPT for like, hey, code this for me or make a function that does this. And then you go in there and you actually write the code that it should make, and then you write like the description, you pretend you're the LLM, and you actually like make the function that's gonna work, and then you submit it, and then they use all of that in order to fine tune and train large language models, and they pay you like $50 an hour or some shit. So I really hope I get that job. That would be fantastic. I can do it. I can code in Swift, Python, C++, any of the languages that I want. Obviously, I'm gonna focus on Swift, probably Python quite a bit too, because I like that. Python is good. And then fuck C++ though. I ain't coding in that shit. And then, yeah. And then I think if I get that job, that would be fantastic. But that's on the internet. I think another thing that I'm gonna do is really sit down and like thoroughly contemplate dropping out of college. I don't see that being the right path, but I think I need to think it through fully and really consider it deeply in order to be able to let it go. And if I do that, then I'm like, oh shit, I think this is actually the right path. I think it should actually drop out of college. And it's like, hey, fair enough. I gotta do what I gotta do. But I think for now, I should be chilling. I could I'm also tempted to wait until summer to do that and just do another semester because I'm gonna do my independent study regardless this semester. And I don't think it's worth missing out on that. I mean, that opportunity would theoretically still be there in a year, but I've got the guy right now, and he would still work with me even if I wasn't doing that, I think. So, I don't know. What else? Reading books. Break is coming up. Gonna read a lot during that, hopefully. Maybe I'll do a lot more of these over break. I feel like that's a good time to do a lot of these. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of fried. It's been a long day. I went to lab today. I'm building an acceleration based flamethrower for one of my final projects. It goes on for electronics design lab. It goes on our little vehicle car robot that we designed over the semester, and they're like, hey, add something, anything. And I was like, a flamethrower? And they were like, sure. And I was like, fuck yeah. So I got basically a solenoid valve and an arc lighter, and the arc lighter sits in front of the solenoid valve, and the solenoid valve is connected to a propane tank, and both of them are connected to an Arduino that's connected to an accelerometer. And the Arduino gets a reading from the accelerometer, and it sends a signal that opens the solenoid valve, sending the propane through, and turns on the arc lighter, igniting the propane, and then you get fire. So that's fucking sick. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to redesign it a little bit to be smaller and reprogram a little bit to use the accelerometer to read a punch, and then when you punch, it'll shoot fireballs, and it'll be like mounted, and then it'll be a punch activated flamethrower, and then you'd be like a firebender. And I think that could be pretty cool. I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender last night. That was sick. That was super cool. Who doesn't like some Avatar: The Last Airbender? Okay, I want to go back to that thought on like wealth. And because I'm not sure like what to think about it. Because on one hand, dude, if I'm making like let's say 7 million a year, realistically, if I have 100,000 users and I'm making 950 off that app, and that's after taxes, and then let's say we take off like 50 grand for OpenAI like token fines, right? You have to pay to every time you make an API call, all that kind of stuff. And 50,000 is like a way overestimate. But you take that out, you're still making $900,000 freaking a month. And that's, again, after taxes, although I'd imagine taxes go up at that point. But regardless, you're making well over $1 million a year. Maybe 3 million, maybe 5 million, something like that. If it's like, the taxes that I already have apply, but there's income tax. Does App Store already take for income tax? I don't know. But then how does it know what tax bracket you're in? I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how taxes work. I have no idea how that shit works. Do I pay tax? No, I don't pay taxes. All the jobs I've had have just auto-paid taxes for me. Anyway, let's say it drops down, you're making like 5 million a freaking year. Like, dude, that's a really good position to be in when you're 25. That's a damn good position to be in when you're 25. But I will say that doesn't solve all your problems, because you can be a millionaire and be absolutely miserable. And I know everybody like knows this. They hear that and they're like, well, yeah, like no shit, but like whatever. But I think it's more important to master the internal world and to be at peace with yourself and to be accepting of the problems that life will still bring, and not dilute yourself into believing that when you make all this money, all of a sudden your problems are going to go away. And to be able to go, as I go through life right now, and I have problem outside of the business world, be able to recognize like my victories over here aren't going to make these problems over here go away. They'll still exist over there. And so either, I deal with them right now, or I put them to the side, but I accept, hey, those are later problems. And I think it's also important to recognize that, you know, the whole process of life is just like dealing with problems. And that can be enjoyable if you have the right perspective on it. But I think, I don't know, dude. I've been thinking about like happiness and like discontentment a lot recently. I think I made some videos on it. And it's like, you know, you want to be at peace internally, but it seems like something that destroys that inner peace is that desire for inner peace, right? Because then you face discontentment, and then it's almost worse because you're like, oh no, I'm not happy. And then you're like, it's even more chaos. But at the same time, you don't want to miss out on the life that you're living. Because I mean, let's be honest. We live in America. We live in one of the best times in all of history in the world, and in one of the best places in the whole world. And it's like, you don't want to miss out on how good things are because you're thinking about how good things could be and ignoring how bad things could be, because things can get real bad. And it's like, if they were that bad, then they get good. It's like you appreciate how good it is for a time. I think I really experienced this after I sobered up, got out of like partying and drugs and all of that chaos and all the inner turmoil that brought. For about a year, I was just in bliss, and I was exercising, and I was kind of starting down this path of online business. I made that Pride course that freaking sucks, but hey, you know what? I knew it back then. It was just practice. I was learning. I'm still learning. You got to go through it. But I knew that was a step forward, and I was taking those steps forward, and I was loving it because it was like, man, like this is a good, peaceful life. And I feel like now I'm kind of getting into this place where I'm forgetting how good things are. And I think like recently I kind of revisited that world, not personally, I just was kind of brought back into it, temporarily visited, didn't participate, just watched. And I looked at the lives of the people in it. I was like, fuck, man, like I'm glad I got out of this life. But and then I came back and I was like, dude, good life, loving things, everything's good. And then it's like that faded so quickly, and I got back into the kind of this place of like discontentment. And I know discontentment is useful in driving you towards a better place, and there is a better place I want to get to. You know, I mean, life is great right now, but you know, there's more to have. There's making a family. I want to build a big friend group, and I want all of my closest friends to all live together, not together, but live in the same neighborhood. So we have a nice community around each other. And I would ideally want to have other friends who are as wealthy as I am. And as a result, we all have a lot of free time. So a lot of our time can be spent working on projects, working on little engineering projects, not having to work, but working because we have some sense of purpose that we find in it, building businesses that contribute to the world in some meaningful way, and that we find fun and enjoyable to work on. But in order to create that kind of life, I have to be driven towards it. I don't think I necessarily have to rely on discontentment to develop that life, but I find myself falling into discontentment often. And then I find myself getting more discontent and less at peace when I'm so bothered by the fact that I'm discontent, when I'm desiring contentment so much, or when I'm putting peace on this pedestal. And I don't know how to get around that, because, you know, to some degree, then it's like, all right, well, you have to be willing to accept some level of discontentment in your life and see that almost as a positive thing. But then again, it's like, I don't know. I guess gratitude is always useful, practicing gratitude. I could do that more. I could certainly afford to do that more. I don't know, it's a weird balance to strike. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. I want to make more of these. I want to make it more exciting, put some stuff, have things going on in it. Maybe I'll do like the talk that I just had, but in little segments throughout the day. I'll be like blah 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 blah, and then I'll do like a video of me walking somewhere, and then I'll be like blah 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 blah, and then I'll do a video of me like getting lunch with somebody. I don't know. Oh, or I'll do like kickboxing videos. I gotta get back to kickboxing. I was sick last week. I haven't gone in a whole week, so I might go tomorrow morning, which means I gotta freaking get to sleep. All right, good night, folks. Take care. Don't get too lost in the sauce or anything. Bye.